Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Innal hamdalillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udzu billahi min syururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Yahdihil fala mudilla lahu fala hadiyalah. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la syarikalah wa asyhadu anna Muhammadan abduhu wa rasuluh. Allahumma shalli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad kama shallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim wa barik ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim fil alamin. Alhamdulillah, Allah has blessed us all, and we meet again in the next session of Pearls of Baitul Maqdis, Mutiara Baitul Maqdis. And Alhamdulillah, Allah has granted us very much blessings, starting from our bodies, our souls, and also our minds. Everything Allah has blessed us as being a Muslim. And this time we will talk more about Baitul Maqdis, a very important topic, significant topic for us Muslims, knowledge that maybe has been buried for centuries by the enemies of Muslim, the ones that don't want Muslim to be part of the fullness, of the gloriness of this world. And for that, as a Muslim, we should be part of being peace, not only in Baitul Maqdis, but also Baitul Maqdis as part of being peace in the world as a whole. And due to that, inshallah, we will have the topic talking about Baitul Maqdis as the mirror of global Muslim condition. And Alhamdulillah, with us has joined us Dr. Khalid Al-Awaisi. Assalamualaikum, Doctor.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Ramadan Mubarak, and may Allah bless these gatherings and the listeners who are listening to us.
Ameen, mashallah. Dr. Khalid has been with us talking about several topics, and this time we will start to recognize that Baitul Maqdis is not only just talking about a masjid. It is not only talking about a city. It is not just talking about a region. But even more than that, when we talk about Baitul Maqdis, we are talking about the world. And in this position, we should have more knowledge about Baitul Maqdis. We can't bring peace, we can't recognize Baitul Maqdis if we don't have the ma'rifah, have the knowledge, have the pearls of Baitul Maqdis. And inshallah, Dr. Khalid will accompany us all. And for that, we hope Allah give us blessings for all the knowledge that Dr. Khalid will present us. And before we start our session, let us start with a prayer. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Due to that, Dr. Khalid, we hope that you can give us a vast explanation and marifah due to this topic. For that, we give you the time and opportunity.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most kind, and peace and blessings be upon the final messenger Muhammad, the son of Abdullah, and his family and his companions, and those who follow him until the day of judgment. It's a pleasure to be with you in this session to talk about a very important topic relating to Baitul Maqdis and it being the mirror for the global Muslim condition. Actually, what we see that the Muslims have lost since losing Baitul Maqdis is unbearable. The Muslims are no longer, if we start with this point, the Muslims do not have a united voice since losing Baitul Maqdis. Since losing Baitul Maqdis, the Muslim Ummah has lost a lot. It has been divided into so many states, so many countries fighting. Now the problem is not with fighting the enemies of Islam. Muslims are fighting one another. This is what the losing of the Baitul Maqdis meant for this Muslim Ummah. Defragmentation, division, And this was the British policy, divide and conquer. That was their policy from the colonialist policy in general, and British policy in particular, is to divide before you take the place. And this they succeeded in. The West succeeded in putting amongst the Muslims a number of ideas, a number of things that have made the Muslims the idea of nationalism, the idea of nation states. These ideas have divided the Muslims more than what they were already divided. Sultan Abdul Hamid was offered to give up Baitul Maqdis, to give up the Holy Land, to give up Al-Ard al-Muqaddasa, and in return, his whole death, the death of the whole Ottoman Empire that united the Muslims from east to west, will be all paid off as long as you give us your heart. If you give us your heart, the heart of the Ummah is Baitul Maqdis. If you give us the heart, we will pay off all your debt. Sultan Abdul Hamid did not, and continued to fight against these powers until he was dethroned. He was taken off the Khilafah because he wrote this in his own handwriting to his sheikh in Damascus, in Dimashq, Abu Shamat. He wrote to him, the reason I was taken off the throne of the Khilafah is because I would not give Baitul Maqdis to the Jews and to the Zionists and to the West. Baitul Maqdis is a relatively small land. Had he given it up, the Ottoman Khilafah might have still lived until today. But Sultan Abdul Hamid knew if you give up your heart, it would no longer function. So the Ottoman Khilafah was brought to an end soon after Abdul Hamid was brought down from the throne. What we need to understand is that Baitul Maqdis was important since the first days of Islam. It used to be our first Qibla. It is not just the first Qibla of Muslims, it used to be the first center of monotheism on earth after the Kaaba. The second masjid on earth at the time of Adam alayhi salam, the first Khalifa on earth, his center was in Baitul Maqdis. He built Baitul Maqdis. He built Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. Al-Aqsa is the thermometer of this ummah. It is the mirror, as you put it, my dear brother, but it's also the thermometer. If we have, and this is the equation, if Muslims have Baitul Maqdis in their hand, they are in izzah and they are in power. If they lose Baitul Maqdis, they lose everything. And to put this in the equation of Umar ibn al-Khattab, radiyallahu anhu, when he was in Baitul Maqdis, they told him, Umar, your clothes are a little rough. You're going to meet the Byzantine Empire's holy city. At least you should dress up a little bit. Instead of the camel, have a horse. They tried to change Umar's personality. And Umar's response was very strong. Whatever you try to seek izzah in, as Allah actually says it in the Quran, izzah, this pride, should always be in Islam, nothing else. Your izzah should be in Islam in essence, and it should not be in anything else. So Umar ibn Khattab responds when he was in Baitul Maqdis to the great Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is that he criticized these ideas and he said, we were the least people, we were the most humiliated people, we had nothing before Islam. With Islam, Allah has given us a status. Allah has raised us above others. Without Islam, we will go back to the same equation. We are nothing without Islam. We are nothing without Islam. Islam is what made us into what we are today, into a civilization. Before Islam, we did not have civilization, whether Arabs or Turks or Kurds or Indonesians or whoever we are. Before Islam, or even the Mongols, or even the Europeans, or whoever we are talking about in Andalus or in North Africa, Islam is what gave rise to these nations. And Ibn Khaldun, in his excellent Muqaddimah, he talks about how people before Islam, Islam is what brought a systematic life into these barbaric people's life. The Arabs, he talked about, were barbaric people. Only Islam is what brought some sort of system into their life and gave them a civilization. The Quran talks about Baitul Maqdis as the center of barakah, as a center of barakah for the world, and the Kaaba as the center of hidayah for the world. So the Kaaba is the center of hidayah. It is the source of hidayah for al-alameen, and Al-Aqsha and Baitul Maqdis is the source of barakah lil-alameen. When hidayah comes to Baitul Maqdis, we are talking about a universal Islam that will spread to the whole world. We are taking Islam to the next level, and this before the end of my the points that I would like to raise, it is to give hope that Baitul Maqdis is the last hope for this ummah. And Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam has given us the future and mentioned that when the Khilafah comes to Baitul Maqdis, when justice and peace will come to Baitul Maqdis, the whole earth will be under Islam. Rasulullah says, not a single house on this earth Islam will not have entered. The future of Islam, the next stage of Islam, Fatih Mecca, the liberation of Mecca in the 8th century, in the year 8 of Hijrah, at the hands of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, was the first global level for Islam. Islam has reached so much after that point. The next liberation of Baitul Maqdis will take Islam to the universal global level again. So it will be the new start for this ummah. What was destroyed in 1924 and with the dethroning of Sultan Abdul Hamid, this idea that the Muslims were all under one umbrella, all the Muslims have a voice that they can share with the world. Today, we don't have a single Muslim voice. The Muslim voice is defragmented. The Muslim voice is divided. The Muslims are fighting amongst themselves. There is different poles amongst the Muslims on this issue. But if we take it back 1,000 years ago, the Muslim situation was very similar to our situation today. And this is when we are talking about the Crusades. When the Crusaders came and occupied Baitul Maqdis, it was a blow for the whole Muslim ummah. And this ummah was not able to stand up again until they liberated Baitul Maqdis. So we know that Baitul Maqdis is not just a thermometer. Baitul Maqdis is also, as you feel, the mirror of this ummah. It's the balance. If we have Baitul Maqdis in our hand, we are in a good position generally. If we lose Baitul Maqdis, we are in a very bad condition generally. So this is a general equation for the case of Bait al-Maqdis. When we look at even when the Ottoman Empire was in its weakest point, before the dethroning of Sultan Abdul Hamid, we know that the Muslim Ummah, Sultan Abdul Hamid would appoint the Mufti for England. He would appoint who is going to be representing Islam and giving fatwa in the lands of the non-Muslims in England. He would look after the Muslim affairs in Thailand. He would send support for the Muslims in Indonesia, in Aceh, to support against the occupiers. You can see when the Muslim has one body, it is able to work from east to west and to be able to look after the Muslim affairs. It is to reflect the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, the Muslims are like one body. If one part is in pain, the rest should be in the in the same pain or carrying the same pain. Today, when we see the case of the Muslims in Syria and the case of the Muslims in the Rohingya, or the case of the Muslims in East Turkestan, in Western China, or we look at the Muslims in parts of Africa, or we look at the case of the Muslims even in the West, there is no voice when we see the name of the Prophet ﷺ be dishonored in France during the time when there was a Muslim umbrella. The Ottoman Sultan said to the French, if you do not stop defaming the name of the Prophet in your theaters, then we will represent the Muslims with an army that will be starting from the last Muslim land all the way into the hearts of your capital. At that time, they stopped because there was a united Muslim voice. Today, they take it even to the next level. They come on Muslim TV and they challenge the Muslim Ummah that it is freedom of expression to insult your Prophet. This is where the Ummah has come because they lost faith. Actually, I will tell you a similar story that happened during the Crusade. During the Crusade, the Muslims were defragmented. The Muslims were so many city-states fighting one another, putting their hands in the hands of the enemy of Islam. So what we see today in the case of many Muslim Arab countries, putting their hands in the hand of Zionists is not something new. Treachery, unfortunately, exists in all time, in all nations. But this treachery that takes place today, with many people putting their hands in the hands of the Zionists against their Muslim brothers and sisters and giving up their right in Al-Aqsha Mosque, is a representation of the highest level of nifaq and hypocrisy that existed even at the time of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. A third of Medina constituted of munafiqeen. But these munafiqeen, the only way to destroy them is to strengthen the unity of Islam. This is what is happening today. We go back 1,000 years ago, when the time of Nuruddin Zinki, he tries to unite the Muslims for one goal, the liberation of Al-Aqsha Mosque. The Muslims will disagree on everything, as we have said before. They will disagree. I am a Shafi'i, you're a Hanafi. We will disagree on politics, whether you support this political party or that political party. But two believers will not disagree on the importance of Al-Aqsha. So Nuruddin Zinki, and before him his father, and before him great scholars like Sulami and like Al-Harawi and other, took this idea and tried to unite the Muslims over one goal, the liberation of Al-Aqsha Mosque, the liberation of Baitul Maqdis, our holy land. And in this process, by the way, is not easy. The unity of the Muslims, once the Muslims are divided, to reunite them, it is more difficult than fighting the enemies of Islam. Salah ad-Din spent 7 years in Egypt and North Africa and Yemen, and 15 years in Syria and in southern Turkey and in Iraq to unite the Muslims. 15 years. A total of nearly 22, 25 years of working to unite the Muslims. The defeat of the enemies of Islam, the Crusaders at that time, happened within 4 or 5 years. So you can see the major obstacle for the liberation of Baitul Maqdis is not just the Zionists who are occupying Baitul Maqdis, but it's also the disunity amongst the Muslims. What happened at the time of Salah ad-Din was, while Salah ad-Din was trying to reunite the Muslims under one banner, one of the Crusader princes goes to Medina, the city of the Prophet ﷺ. The French obsession with Rasulullah ﷺ is not a new one. What they're doing today in trying to dishonor our Prophet ﷺ, and ad'aful iman, the least level of faith, is to boycott their products and to try to stay away from the French to teach them a lesson, at least economically, if we're unable to do anything else. At the time of Salah ad-Din, Renaud de Chatillon, a French prince, decides to go from Karak in Baitul Maqdis, and he goes all the way to Medina with the aim of digging the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and carrying his blessed body to where? To France. So when the Muslims want to go and visit the grave of Rasulullah, they have to go to France and pay taxes to the French. This was his grand plan. Salah ad-Din sends the Muslim ships from Egypt, because Salah ad-Din was so far away. He was in North Syria, in North Iraq, and South Turkey today. So he sent the Muslim ships, and they catch this Crusader prince just outside Medina. By the way, who helped this prince? Some of the Bedouin tribes were helping him to lead him, to give him the route to Medina. So you can see what is nifaq, hypocrisy, existing all the time. So some Muslims helping to take the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, his blessed body, and to carry it to France. And we see today many Muslims from these lands, or munafiq from this land, doing exactly the same, in dishonoring Islam and dishonoring even the name of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Salah ad-Din chose a goal for the Muslims. Many of the Muslim leaders would work with the Crusaders. Salah ad-Din changed this equation. We will all work together. This unity meant the liberation of Al-Aqsha. And with the help of all the Muslims from all these different places, from the places that Salah ad-Din managed to reunite, we were able to reach what we have reached today. We come to the situation today in Baitul Maqdis. And how was Baitul Maqdis taken, and how was Baitul Maqdis brought under occupation? And what is this doing for the Muslim Ummah? We have already explained. When Salah ad-Din managed to liberate Baitul Maqdis, the Muslim Ummah was again liberated, and the Muslim Ummah came under one banner again. Salah ad-Din managed to end the Fatimid influence in Egypt, the Fatimid Khilafah, which was a rival Khilafah against the Khilafah in Baghdad. Salah ad-Din managed to reunite the Muslims, which was the aim of his teacher, Nur ad-Din Muhammad. When we come to our modern, we look at the mirror of the situation of the Muslims today. We look at ourselves in the mirror. We see how the Muslims are divided into so many mini-states fighting against one another. And this is part of the colonialist legacy in dividing the Muslim land and occupying the Muslim land. Continuing with the idea of the crusade. Actually, colonialism, in a sense, was an extension of the Crusader campaigns, because we know after Salah ad-Din, we have the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th crusade. And these crusades decided that in order to take Baitul Maqdis first, they need to take Egypt, the center of power in the region. So they changed their route from going directly to Baitul Maqdis, which Nur ad-Din Zinki understood, and this is why Salah ad-Din started from Egypt. So you need to understand the equation quite well. They understood this equation and started their campaigns towards North Africa, and particularly Egypt, which the 7th Crusade failed with the imprisoning of the King of France. And then we have a number of other crusades that continue, but they started moving further west into Africa, starting from the north, from Tunisia and from other parts of northern Africa. They still failed until you have someone like Christopher Columbus. You might be surprised. What is the connection between Christopher Columbus and the Crusade and Baitul Maqdis? Christopher Columbus wanted to go to America using Muslim maps. Al-Bakri, the Muslim geographer, had already discovered America centuries before even Columbus was born. But what we are told, the narrative we are told,
Yes.
is Christopher Columbus is the one that did. He used maps from Andalus, Muslim maps, to go to America. For what reason? This is from his memoirs, based on his own writing. And it was published by Carol Dentley in her book, Jerusalem, Columbus and the Quest for Jerusalem. In her book, she says, she quotes directly from his memoirs, that the Crusades, Christopher Columbus wanted to go to America to gather gold for a new crusade to take Baitul Maqdis from Muslims.
Oh.
That was the aim of discovering the Americas.
America.
So you can see, yes, you can see this idea of the crusade continued in their mind and did not disappear. And it was materialized in a new form with Napoleon in the 18th century. Napoleon Bonaparte came to Egypt. He occupied Egypt first. And from Egypt, he came to the Holy Land, Baitul Maqdis, and he tried to occupy it, but he was destroyed by the Ottoman army in Akka, in the north of Palestine. He occupied many of the cities, but then he was destroyed there. But while he was in Akka, this is very interesting, Brother Dennis. What happened is he called upon the Jews of the world to come to Baitul Maqdis, and he will establish a Jewish state for them. This is in 1799, before the Zionists established the Zionist Congress in 1897. 100 years before, Napoleon suggested to them, let's give you Palestine. What we see is that it is the mirror of the Muslim Ummah, but it's also the mirror of the West. The West understood what he wanted to create for them, and later on Britain continued on this. What he wanted to create for them was a buffer state in the heart of the Muslim Ummah. The aim was, as was done, explained in a conference in London when the British took this project, to place in the heart of the Muslim Ummah a foreign body that is an enemy to the area around it, but a friend to the West. And what was created in the heart of the Muslim Ummah, remember when we talked about Sultan Abdul Hamid, they asked him for the heart of the Muslim Ummah, he refused. They still pursued this until the Balfour Declaration, until the British occupation in 1917, when they 30 years later, they handed over to the Zionists to control the whole of the Muslim world. They understood the equation: whoever controls Baitul Maqdis controls the Muslim East, and whoever controls the Muslim East controls the world. They understood the importance of this equation, which is part of actually we take it from the Baraka Circle theory, based on the Quranic verse. And we see the extent in which today the Zionist lobby controls from West in America to Eastern countries, and how he has such a strong influence in the media, in politics, in worldwide affairs. So when we lost Baitul Maqdis, we lost this advantage point. And for us to regain this, this is the mirror of the Muslim Ummah. To regain this, this would bring back izzah to the Muslims again. But to conclude with the positive understanding that Baitul Maqdis will be liberated. It is a fact. Baitul Maqdis will be liberated. The Muslim Ummah will have back its izzah again. There will be a new Muslim, not a new Muslim, a new Islamic revival a new Islamic start for this ummah. After it was started, Islam started with Rasulullah in 610, and as with the establishment of a state in 622, from 622 until 1924, the Muslims had a state. The Muslims had an umbrella. From 1924 until today, in 2021, we, the Muslims, are fragmented and divided. To just wrap up, before we talk about the positive points, just to wrap up on the position of the Muslims today. When Donald Trump comes and he says, Jerusalem, United Jerusalem, not East or West Jerusalem, all of Jerusalem will be the eternal capital, not of Israel, of the Jewish people. In 2017, when Donald Trump comes out and makes such a statement, the Muslims tried to meet, to at least give some response to Donald Trump. And at that time, OIC, or the Islamic Congress, met in Istanbul. But what we saw was very disappointing. 54 Muslim countries would try to meet to discuss the most essential Muslim topic, Al-Aqsha Mosque and Baitul Maqdis, and what Donald Trump is suggesting. And we have some Muslim leaders making sure that this summit will fail. To be blunt about this, this was in the media in 2017, and you can check it. Mohammed bin Salman of Saudi Arabia would call Muslim leaders one by one not to take part in the summit in Istanbul, because Baitul Maqdis and Palestine is no longer a priority for us. This is what they were trying to push in this agenda. And you can see the pressure that was placed on many Muslim countries that we will cut your funding, we will do this, we will come to another issue related to also Indonesia in this regard. But this was a starting point. Out of 54 Muslim country leaders, only 14 turned up in Istanbul. From 54, only 14 turned up. And their position was the East Jerusalem. Remember, Donald Trump said all of Jerusalem, all United Jerusalem. They said East Jerusalem, which is 14% of Jerusalem, Donald Trump is talking about, will be the future capital of Palestine. Donald Trump said for the Jewish people and for Israel. You can see how, because we are disunited, from 54, only 14 turned up, you can see the position was very weak. This is a reflection of the division of the Muslims. There was another attempt led by Turkey to take the 5 strongest, biggest Muslim countries to unite their voices together. It included Turkey, Pakistan, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Qatar, if you recall this a few years ago. Again, the same regimes in the Gulf put pressure on these Muslim countries not to make this a summit a success. So you can see the problem is not with Western power per se. The problem is in the division that Salah ad-Din understood, and he spent 14 years in Syria and Iraq and the Anadolu trying to unite the Muslim leaders. This is much more difficult than fighting the actual enemy. And you can see the different positions that you come out with in such a weak case. Coming to the future of Baitul Maqdis, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gives us hope. The Quran gives us hope. The first chapter, the first page of chapter Al-Isra, Surah Al-Isra, mentions Baitul Maqdis will be liberated. The 7th verse, clearly, we will enter the masjid like it was entered the first time. We will enter Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. It will be liberated for sure. It will be the start of a new revolution and revival for the Islamic Ummah. It will reunite the Muslim Ummah because it is the only topic that can reunite the Muslims. The idea of the importance of Baitul Maqdis, but only if they understand the importance of Baitul Maqdis. If we look ourselves in the mirror and see how important Al-Aqsa is as our heart, without our heart, we cannot function as a single body.
Yeah.
Each part, each finger is moving in a different direction. This finger is in this direction, that finger is in that direction, because the mind, the heart is not in the same place. And without this, it is not possible. But this will happen with us or without us. If we want a strong Muslim Ummah, we have to put Al-Aqsa as our priority. We have to put Baitul Maqdis as a priority. If Indonesia wants to be strong, Al-Aqsa has to be on the priority list of the Indonesian people and the biggest Muslim population in the world. Al-Aqsa has to be on the priority list. Baitul Maqdis will be liberated. Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said that the future center of Khilafah will be in Baitul Maqdis. And once it is in Baitul Maqdis, it will not leave. And once it is in Baitul Maqdis, what does that mean? It means that this Ummah will be reunited under one flag again. A strong Muslim federation that will extend the Muslims from the east to west under one voice and under one umbrella. It's not a dream because Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned it. This is something that will happen. And it is a fact. And it will be on the same methodology of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Rasulullah said, "Ala minhaj al-nubuwwah," which means it will be like the Khilafah Rashida that happened during the time of Rasulullah and during the time of the Sahaba, Abu Bakr and Umar, Uthman and Ali. It will be at that level, the ideal that every Muslim hopes for, the ideal that every Muslim dreams for, is to bring a united Muslim voice. We see in Europe, they have a united European voice in the European Union. Why do the Muslims not have a united Muslim voice? The OIC that was meant to unite the Muslims was created for Al-Aqsa Mosque in 1969. When Al-Aqsa Mosque was burned to the ground, the Organization of Islamic Conference and then later Islamic Cooperation was established as a response to the Zionist attack on Al-Aqsa Mosque to create a united Muslim voice. What did it do instead? Unfortunately, the fragmented Muslim poles that pulled it in different directions made sure that the Quds Committee, the Baitul Maqdis Committee, the Jerusalem Committee has not met in 22 years in the OIC. So you can see that this needs to be the focus. Once Baitul Maqdis is liberated, it will be the center of the next Islamic revival. It will be the second wave of the universality of Islam. When Imam, in some of the weak hadith, Imam al-Mahdi will come, he will come to Baitul Maqdis. When Imam Isa, in our last session, we talked about Imam Isa, Prophet Isa will kill the Dajjal in Baitul Maqdis. It is not just in the past Baitul Maqdis was important. It's not just important in the present. It is important for the future of this Muslim Ummah. So it's not just the thermometer. It is, as you said, the mirror. It shows us, if we look at the case in Baitul Maqdis, it is under occupation. This equation must be known by every single Muslim. If we lose Baitul Maqdis, we lose our honor, we lose our izzah, we lose our dignity. And with the regaining of Baitul Maqdis, we will regain our izzah and honor and dignity in the nations around the world. And to do this, if anyone would like to read more, to read on the Barakah Circle theory and the importance of the Muslim countries in the future liberation of Baitul Maqdis, particularly extending from Egypt, to Syria, to Turkey, and even extending to as far as the biggest Muslim country, Indonesia, and having this as a priority for us in Indonesia to liberate Baitul Maqdis and to make sure that Indonesia, as the biggest Muslim country, has a big role in the unity of the Muslims, and having Al-Aqsa as a priority is very important in making sure that we have a strong Indonesia for the future, inshallah.
Yes. MashaAllah, Dr. Khalid, your describe about Baitul Maqdis and its importance gives us a great awareness that Baitul Maqdis is not only talking about people at Baitul Maqdis, but Baitul Maqdis talks about it has implications to the Muslim world. And due to that, there are several questions about Baitul Maqdis that is being asked through YouTube channel or other social medias. One of them are asking about how much is this importance of bringing peace in Baitul Maqdis? I think that it really means that when peace is in Baitul Maqdis, what implication does it have to the world, to the Muslim world in particular, or to overall humankind? What does happen when peace is in Baitul Maqdis?
Yes, a very good question. Without peace in Baitul Maqdis, the world will not see peace. This is also an important distinction. The world will not see peace because there is always a conflict. Baitul Maqdis is important to more than half of the world's population. And as the English historian Karen Armstrong puts it, only under Islam did Baitul Maqdis have peace and prosperity. Before Islam, before Umar ibn Khattab comes to Baitul Maqdis, the Byzantines are slaughtering the Persians are slaughtering the Byzantines, the Jews are slaughtering the Christians, and the Christians are slaughtering the Jews. The only people that managed to bring peace for everyone, not just for the Muslims, for everyone, for all the followers of the different religions, was Islam. This is the testimony of Karen Armstrong, the British historian, on this. This is because Islam's vision for this land is not an exclusive vision. Islam's vision for this land is an inclusive one. لِلْعَالَمِينَ الْأَرْضُ الَّتِي بَارَكْنَا فِيهَا لِلْعَالَمِينَ. Muslims do not try to exclude others. They allow everyone under the Islamic umbrella to have their churches, to have their worship, to be under, in peace and harmony, under the flag of Islam, which was successful. Islam is the only religion that does not force convert people. When Umar ibn Khattab came to Baitul Maqdis, he allowed the people to stay on their religion. He protected their crosses in the Umayyah. And Umar's assurance of safety, it was very clear that Islam was very inclusive. But when we look at other cases, when Christians came to Baitul Maqdis, what they did, they slaughtered everyone in Al-Aqsha Mosque. When we look at the Christians, what they did in Andalus, they forced the Muslims and the Jews to convert to Christianity. If they do not, they will slaughter them. Many of them had to run away. You can see the difference in how Islam has conducted itself. With peace in Baitul Maqdis, with the liberation of Baitul Maqdis, this will bring global peace, because it will take, today there is so much Islamophobia against Islam.
Yes.
There is so much negative coverage of Islam. The second revival of Islam and taking Islam to the global level, we said the first one, as one great Palestinian scholar puts it, he says the first one was the Fath of Mecca, that changed, actually even Sulh al-Hudaybiyah was the first universality of Islam, when Rasulullah wrote the letters to all the leaders of the world inviting them to Islam. It took Islam to that universal level, followed by the Fath of Mecca and followed by the liberation of these lands from the tyranny of these rulers, whether the Persian or the Byzantines. The second revival of Islam starting from Baitul Maqdis, which will start after the liberation of Baitul Maqdis, will take Islam to that universal level again, and will make sure, as Rasulullah puts it, every house will have peace in it. Every house will have Islam in it, inshallah. This is connected with the liberation of Baitul Maqdis. So bringing peace to Baitul Maqdis will bring peace to the world by the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
MashaAllah. And we are not only waiting for that to happen, but we are trying to be part of that liberation. And due to that, Dr. Khalid, what are the steps that must be done by us Muslims? I'm not only mentioning about Muslims at Baitul Maqdis, but also Muslims around the world, even Muslims at Indonesia, Muslims at places that they are minority. What can we do, and what are the steps that must be done, at least as a Muslim, due to the bringing peace upon Baitul Maqdis? Because we see that Baitul Maqdis can be so far, but we want to do something, but there are a lot of things that is being considered for that. And what steps are the most useful, the most important that we should do now regarding to the bringing peace of Baitul Maqdis?
Thank you very much for that. First, I think there's many steps, but one of the most important thing is to reflect that Baitul Maqdis is the land of hope. It was the land of hope for Ibrahim alayhi salam. When Ibrahim was thrown in the fire, Baitul Maqdis was his hope. He was brought to Baitul Maqdis, as the Quran puts it, and that became his center. When Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam was tortured in Mecca, was attacked in Ta'if, his hope was in Baitul Maqdis. So when we are in this difficult position as a Muslim Ummah, remember our hope, and what I mentioned from the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ gives us hope that this Ummah will rise again from Baitul Maqdis. So for this, we need to put it in our mind that the liberation of Baitul Maqdis is the liberation of every Muslim around the world. The liberation of Baitul Maqdis and the hope and the freedom of Baitul Maqdis is the freedom of the Muslims in Indonesia, the Muslims in Eastern Turkestan, the Muslims in Kashmir, the Muslims in Pakistan, the Muslims in Afghanistan, the Muslims all across the Muslim world. The freedom of Al-Aqsa is their freedom. This is your first Qibla. This is the Qibla of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This is the second mosque built on earth, the second center of monotheism. We need to understand this, at least connect hope with Baitul Maqdis. This is very important. And in an earlier session, we have talked about the importance of knowledge. The problem is that today Muslims do not understand the importance of Al-Aqsa, the importance it means to every single Indonesian. Today, the 250 or 270 million Indonesian, Al-Aqsa should be part of their hearts, minds, and spirits. It should be part, but you can only achieve this through knowledge. So the first level, in order for Al-Aqsa to be liberated, is to liberate our minds and to have Al-Aqsa in the mind and heart and soul of every Muslim Indonesian today. It has to be our hope, our future is Baitul Maqdis, and it has to be connected to it in one way or another. This is the first step, connecting it with hope and connecting it with knowledge in order for us to get closer to the liberation of Baitul Maqdis. And then, as we learned from the example of Rasulullah, Abu Bakr, and Umar, and then we also learn from the ulama, Nur al-Din and Salah al-Din, we see that there is steps that need to be taken for the liberation of Baitul Maqdis. The most crucial step is knowledge and giving hope to people for the reconnecting our hearts and minds and spirits to Baitul Maqdis as the first step in the liberation of Baitul Maqdis, inshallah. So this is something, we mentioned it at an earlier session, that we expect each one, especially in this beautiful month of Ramadan, to make dua for Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa on a daily basis. We pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us a salah, personal salah in Al-Aqsha when it's free from occupation, to learn more about the importance of the religious importance of Baitul Maqdis and its history, to learn of the political situation, just what happened at the beginning of this Ramadan in Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa. In Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa is a shame on this Muslim ummah, attacking the people inside Al-Aqsa, cutting the loudspeakers so that the Muslim prayer, Taraweeh prayer, does not disturb the Jewish prayers. All of this is taking place took place at the beginning of this month of Ramadan, and unfortunately, by the end of this month, they are planning a big incursion inside the Masjid Al-Aqsa, your masjid. You need to start seeing Al Masjid Al-Aqsa as your personal masjid. If this is to happen to the Kaaba, you would not stay silent. And Al-Aqsa and the Kaaba are not different from one another. Allah only mentions two masjid in the Quran, Al-Aqsa and the Kaaba. So for this reason, your attitude and your movement towards the Masjid Al-Aqsa should be fueled by knowledge. And these are the three that we mentioned, together with preparing our gift for the liberation of Al-Masjid Al-Aqsa, as Rasulullah told us to do, and to boycott Zionist goods or goods that support the Zionist state, as we have mentioned. So there is a lot each one can actually do from Indonesia, but we need to take that first step and continue on it. Small steps, but continuous, is better than a big step that is not continuous.
Yes, I hope so. Thank you very much, Dr. Khalid, for the knowledge and the marifah that are showing the importance of Baitul Maqdis. We hope we have more time to discuss, inshallah, and other sessions. But for now, I hope we get all the messages. We must remember that if we want to bring peace in the world, we must bring peace in Baitul Maqdis. And if we want to bring peace in Baitul Maqdis, we should connect our mind, our body, our soul, our heart. Every part of us is connected to Baitul Maqdis. And due to that, we will liberate ourselves and bring freedom to Muslims around the world. Inshallah, we hope the best for Baitul Maqdis, and we hope the best for Muslims all around us, inshallah. And thank you very much, Dr. Khalid, for the time.
Thank you for such a wonderful 4 sessions on the pearls of Baitul Maqdis. And I pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this month of Ramadan that Allah, like He has gathered us in this virtual world, He will gather us in Al-Aqsa Mosque and pray the Salah of Fath together when it's free from occupation, inshallah. All those who are listening to us, inshallah.
Inshallah. Ameen, Ya Rabbal Alameen. And for this time, we can describe all of the parts of Baitul Maqdis. So for audiences in Indonesia, you can check out about the book of Baitul Maqdis that is called Buku Emas Baitul Maqdis, the Golden Book of Baitul Maqdis. It is written in Indonesian, ditulis dalam bahasa Indonesia, sehingga para pemirsa di rumah bisa mencermati secara lebih detail tentang Baitul Maqdis dan segala yang berkaitan dengan Baitul Maqdis, insyaAllah. And for this time, it will be sufficient, and let us close our session with a prayer. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Keep on connecting yourselves with Baitul Maqdis and keep on praying. Allahumma urzuqna salatan fi Masjidil Aqsa wa huwa hurun aziz. Hope we meet again, and if we meet, we hope we meet in Baitul Maqdis in liberated condition, inshallah. Thank you for all. Inshallah, bidatul taufiq. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.